Hello and welcome. We have already covered 4 domains of internal audit practitioner, the pathway to certified internal auditor designation. So now this is the final video and the 5th video of the same series where we'll be covering domain 5 of IAP. It is having 3 objectives and covers 12% of the course scope. So as per our customary practice, let's ask some interesting questions and then we'll go in further details and answer those questions. So what is an accurate, objective, clear, concise, constructive, complete and timely communication? What are the communication elements? Discuss recommendations to enhance and protect organizational value and describe engagement, communication and distribution. So before moving forward, we will just refresh ourselves with the domains and their respective objectives, number of objectives and the course coverage. So there are 5 domains: internal audit attributes, 5 objectives covering 20% of the scope. Nature of work is the second domain, having 4 objectives, 20% of the course. Engagement planning, having 5 objectives, 23% of the scope coverage, and engagement communication, which was our last video, having the 6 objectives, 25%. And in this video, we'll be covering domain 5, engagement work, with the 3 objectives around the standard series 2400 and covering 12% of the scope. So don't forget to go to my channel, Audit Strategy, because I will referring you to my previous videos in this all along the line, because a lot of academic part is already covered by those videos. So refer to my video on standard 2400 series. I am giving here the link as well. The standards which are covered in 2400 series are 2400 communicating results, 2410 is criteria for communicating, 2420 is quality of communications, 2421 is errors and omissions, 2430 is use of conducted in conformance with the international standards for professional practice of internal auditing, 2431 is engagement, disclosure of non-conformance, 2440 is disseminating results, and 2450 is overall opinions. So let's read the 3 objectives of domain 5, which are recognize, communicate, quality, requires communication, quality, accurate, objective, clear, concise, constructive, complete and timely, and the elements, which are objectives, scope, conclusions, recommendations and action plan. The second objective is to discuss recommendations to enhance and protect organizational value. The third objective is to describe engagement communication, like the preliminary communication, interim reporting, conclusions with the appropriate parties. So the first objective is to recognize the communication quality and the communication elements. So let's understand the definition of all those traits which should be part of the communication quality. So the accurate communications are free from errors and distortions and are faithful to the underlying facts. Objective communications are fair, impartial and unbiased and are the result of a fair-minded and balanced assessment of all relevant facts and circumstances. Clear communications are easily understood and logical and avoiding unnecessary technical language or jargon and providing all significant and relevant information. Concise communications are to the point and avoid unnecessary elaboration, superfluous details, redundancy or wordiness or verbs. Then constructive communications are helpful to the engagement client and the organization and lead to improvements where needed. Complete communications lack nothing that is essential to the target audience and include all significant and relevant information and observations to support recommendations and conclusions. And the timely communications are opportune, expedient, depending on the significance of the issues, allowing management to take appropriate corrective actions. So timely communication means that if all along the line when you're working in an audit and at the start of the audit you find out something so critical that you don't want to wait for the report and it can be a late reporting, so it's better to report that segment or that area immediately so that a timely communication can be reached to the relevant people and timely action can be taken. So while recognizing the engagement elements, there are few important things which we have already discussed in the previous domains, but I'll just refresh those things again. That, for example, the objectives, the engagement objectives. So we have given an example of an engagement objective that, for example, to ensure the accuracy and completeness of payroll transactions, verify compliance with relevant policies, laws, regulations, identify and correct any errors. So whatever function you are auditing or area you are auditing or process you are auditing, you need to clearly communicate, and it is part of your element to have the objectives reported and communicated clearly. Another important communication element is the engagement scope. So for example, in the scenario of payroll audit, the engagement scope can be segregated into payroll processes, payroll transactions, internal controls, payroll related systems, compliance, or others. For example, you can mention the audit period, audit team, timeline, limitations. So you can have the scope segregated or maybe a combined scope, depends on the nature of the assignment, but the objective and scope are two important communication elements which are communicated at an early stage as well when you are sending an audit notification, and on the later stage when you are finalizing and sending your report. So these are also mentioned as part of the report, which we will see in the next of the few slides. And then another important element is the audit conclusions. So when you see the conclusion, for example, I'm giving you a sample of conclusion, that you can say that there are multiple control weaknesses observed during the review in the XYZ function, exposing the organization to various risks. All the key issues and their associated risks are highlighted in the report and provided with suitable control recommendation. And then you can provide a summary of key findings, and then further moving on in the report, in the next part you can give more details about your findings. In the end also you can give an overall rating for the function, for example, needs improvement, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, based on the types of findings and the critical nature of the findings you have highlighted. And then you are reporting the findings. The findings should be reported, there's no one format or template for that, but a tabular format is always useful because you are giving a finding. I'm giving here a sample, and then for that finding you can identify the relevant risk, impact, and the recommendation of yours, and also you can get management comments and the action plan with due dates. The same template, the audit report format, can be useful in discussing your recommendation with the management. So for example, when you are completing your assignment, you are sending a draft report to the management and asking for an audit closing meeting. During the audit closing meeting, you can discuss in details using the same format all your findings, risk, recommendations, and get the feedback on the which you can write in the management comments. Also the action plan which you need to agree, because once the risk is agreed with the management, then the next step is to take an action on that and mitigate that risk with the due dates as well. So this format is very useful, and the audit closing meeting is very useful to conclude that area or discuss in detail the rationale of your finding, and maybe answer some of the queries and counter questions from the management, because management might have some comments on your findings and might object on few of the evidences or documentations you have referred to, where you might have used an older version, and that is why an audit closing meeting on a draft report is very important, so that you can reach to a final report after having a complete proper feedback from the management, and then you can conclude the whole report with the management comments and the action plan. The engagement communication can be at different stages. So all along the line from end to end, I will identify you what are those stages and what type of communication is required. So first is audit notification, where you send a notification to start an audit on a certain date, and you share the objective and scope of the audit. Then there is an agenda you also share for a kickoff meeting or an audit opening meeting. You also can share an initial list of information required. Then once meeting is conducted, you can share the minutes of that kickoff meeting so that you both agreed on what you have discussed. The interim reporting is also important because if you find out some critical risk, you don't have to wait for the final report, but it should be timely and as early as possible should be reported, so action can be taken by the management. And if there is any limitation in scope of your work, you don't have to wait for the end of the report. You need to highlight timely that there is some scope coverage is impossible for you, and you want to sort out those issues to conclude this audit appropriately. Then the audit closing meeting with the first draft report, as I discussed in the previous slide. The audit closing meeting, when we are conducting, we have the draft report on the table, discussing those findings to get the feedback of the management, and then we finalize the audit report with the management comments, document it and issue a final report, distribute it with the timelines agreed and the audit conclusion recorded. And to whom you will be sharing your audit report? You can give a distribution list, for example, the name of the person, the title of the person, and the purpose you are sharing it for. For example, I've given an example of here that if it is a payroll report, payroll audit, you can share your report to the chief HR officer for action, to the senior manager HR, then regional head for information purposes, and the CEO for their information purposes, and so on and so forth. It depends on the level of authorities and people connected with the audit. So this concludes our internal audit practitioner videos. We have covered all the 5 domains. Now it's up to you to focus on your studies, check the videos having the relevant standards covered, and check these videos where as far as possible I have communicated to you the practical aspect of that. I've given my contact details as well. If you have any queries, please drop in an email to me and I'll be in contact with you, and I'll try to get back to you with an appropriate and reasonable answer to that. Subscribe the channel, like the videos, share the videos so other people can also get benefit of that. Thank you so much.